KC Laboratory. Sponsored by Emprise Bank.
It's another victory edition of the KC Laboratory live episode presented by Emprise Bank. Whatever life throws your way, make sure you have a strong defense in place with a high interest savings account. Make your family's playbook look just like the Chiefs with blocking, tackling, and a whole lot of winning. And a hashtag no loss November for everyone. Complete. Thank you to member Emprise Bank member FDIC. So appreciative of them. All they have done for KC Sports Network. They rule. And you know who also rules? My dear pals. First find him on Twitter at Chief in Carolina. Matty Lane. Hello, my friend.
Can we just stay in the month of November forever as Chiefs fans? Yes. We don't lose. We don't lose. All the luck breaks our way as fans of the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now, I believe, only 1.5, and then I guess plus a tiebreaker or something like that, behind the Titans for the first seed in the AFC playoff race. So, let's just stay in November. Can we move our bye week? Can we play another game in November, actually? We don't want to let this luck run out, right?
Yeah, let's get a hold of the Broncos, figure out what they're doing this weekend, see if we can schedule maybe a Sunday game. We don't have to do a Thursday. We can do a Sunday game against the Broncos and then, do the bye week at the beginning of December. Let's just go ahead and extend this division lead out and this defensive performance, this dominance in November out yet another week. I'm really genuinely sad to see November go. They were so good.
Yeah, Craig's beaming. Just absolutely beaming over his defensive performance. We got to start there, I think. I think that is very
certainly can't start on the other side.
We'll get there. We could have started a little more negative, but I think the defense deserves a ton of credit for a lot of different reasons. I know the narrative has been about all the players that the Dallas Cowboys didn't have playing, and that was one of the big excuses, but that pass rush was no joke. That pass rush was the heartbeat of what that defense did. And, I know there's some excuses. You can explain away some things in this hashtag no loss November. I don't care. It's a fun hashtag. It's been a lot of fun to watch this thing, go all the way. But yeah, I think you've got to give the defense credit regardless of who lined up, because this was a dominant team. On that side of the football, they surrendered 11.75 points per game in the month of November, which is worse than the Houston Texans. So I don't care who's on the field. The Chiefs relegated any team that they lined up against to worse than the Houston Texans by 3 points. Craig, this was a great performance.
That's the Houston Texans that just beat the Tennessee Titans, by the way. That same juggernaut that just took down the number 1 seed in the AFC. So watch it out there. No, it's great. They had 25% on third down. The defense allowed, that obviously would be tops in the league for a season-long thing. 37.5% in the red zone. Again, tops in the league if it was season long there. Obviously, over the past couple weeks, it's ranking 3 to 5 amongst defenses, but still, that's outstanding. That's exactly that. Let me take that back. That is more than I think that a lot of us expected out of this defense. And again, it doesn't matter who they're lining up against. The fact that they're executing, they're making offenses look that bad is a testament to it. How many times, just to take it all the way back to injuries here and talking about Tyron Smith being out, talking about some shifting pieces on the offensive line, how many times have we done game previews where we said, listen, this is a prime opportunity for the defensive line to eat, going against backup players, going against some rotating cast of characters. And the response generally that we see is, yeah, well, we say that and then they don't do it. Guess what? They're doing it. And they're doing it against lots of players, lots of starters even. I mean, Chris Jones worked Zach Martin on the inside plenty too. So it wasn't just the matchups that they were able to get. So kudos and a hat tip to that defensive line for being such a dominant force yesterday against the Cowboys. Completely wrecked Dak Prescott and the offense's plans.
The entire month of November, I think you could go game by game and kind of you could come up with these excuses for why the defense is playing better than what anybody would have anticipated. I mean, they didn't play a strong group of offenses once you calculate in the injuries and the guys that miss time each week. But once you do that 4 games in a row, that narrative does kind of get slimmed down a little bit. It doesn't, you can't point to a single game and say, oh, they were only good in this game because the Raiders offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL, because Amari Cooper and then CeeDee Lamb didn't play in this game, or because Aaron, you see how many games I'm having to go through here to put a caveat on. At some point in time, it just becomes about the Chiefs and only the Chiefs and not their opponent. I do think you kind of got there against the Cowboys. You could have made a case they did it against the Raiders too. But that doesn't mean that they didn't get favorable matchups. Like, they absolutely did. This month was perfect for the Chiefs. They played a lot of bad offensive lines, which allowed this defensive line to get their mojo back, to start feeling themselves as they got healthier from the start of the year. And then we got this dominant defensive line that we spent all offseason talking about. How many people tweeted at us being like, hey, what happened to that dominant defensive line you guys were talking about?
Hey, what happened to your Chris Jones Defensive Player of the Year takes? Guess what, baby? They're back.
They're all back.
They're
all back. Okay. Well, tweet at us. Oh, Steve Spagnuolo's got to go. Who should we replace him with? Guess who's not going anywhere right now? Steve Spagnuolo. These guys have all been excellent. Steve Spagnuolo just had the quarterback playing the best this year, the most cerebral playing quarterback this year, in his own head, throwing quick screens on 3rd and 5 over and over again because he had no clue what was coming at him, and because that defensive line was playing good. So, give a round of applause to this defense. It doesn't matter if it was against backups for a lot of it or against, missing pieces. They played great for 4 games. I mean, elite for 4 straight games. That matters.
Mm-hmm. Dominance. They took care of business 4 straight week with sheer dominance. I think Craig kind of alluded to this about the defensive line, but look across the board. This defense dominated 4 straight games. And I think that's the thing you hang your hat on here is, I mean, they 11.75 points per game for 4 games. That is 3 points less than the Houston Texans. That the gap between the Houston Texans and the 26th best team is the same as the gap between the Houston Texans and the Chiefs points allowed this month. So they took care of business. They did what they like. That this is the NFL. These are professionals. I don't care. Like, they did what they were supposed to do. One of the guys that did what he was supposed to do, defensive end Frank Clark. Now, we had a giveaway on KCSN's Twitter account. Retweet, follow, all that good stuff, and you would be entered to win. We have a winner for the Frank Clark signed football, and it is at this little lady J on Twitter. So we will be contacting her to get her information so we can get her the signed Frank Clark football. Congratulations to her. Thank you to everybody who participated. We got all kinds of other giveaways and stuff that we need that we'll be doing throughout the year. So just make sure you're following KC Sports Network, and then good things will happen to you. I promise. Speaking of Frank Clark, though, I think we'll get to Chris Jones because that's undeniable. But I think Frank Clark, perfect transition, because we just got done talking about him, and this is a guy that, man, the narratives about him all over the place. But this is the healthiest he's looked. This looks like the guy that we all thought we were getting here in Kansas City when he came and joined this team. And I'll hand it over to you, Craig, in a second for a lot of different analysis. But one of the other things is, like, he continues to play 80% of the snaps. This dude is just he's such a workhorse, and the effort's outstanding. And he's getting home, and he's rushing the pass. He's affecting the passer. He's making plays. Turned Dak over in the first quarter. This guy is having an outstanding year, and Chris Jones is going to be a big piece of this conversation today, but Frank Clark is certainly worthy of that too.
Oh, yeah. Frank Clark on the day, a 15.9% pressure rate. That is the 4th time in the last 5 games that he has been over 14% pressure rate. So he's getting home. Basically, when he lines up, he's getting home often enough that teams have to respect him. And I think the first sack, obviously, you saw Cowboys trying to go a little bit of tempo there, and they didn't get their protection sorted out. Frank Clark comes off the edge unblocked. I've seen some people kind of talking down about that. My man swatted through the ball. Like, that was an excellent play by him. Doesn't matter if he's unblocked. But the things that he was able to do, crushing the pocket, basically setting Dak up to where he had to climb at all times. Melvin Ingram did it too, but Frank Clark crushing the pocket, setting the backside of that, forcing Dak Prescott up for large parts of the day. That was awesome. Forced a hold call, had a whole bunch of pressures as well, just made his impact throughout the day in a bunch of different facets. And that's the typical Frank Clark game. That's what the Chiefs went out and got him for. That's what he did in Seattle. That's what we saw him do at the end of the year in 2019. This looks like that guy, but maybe more powerful, maybe even better than what we saw in 2019. He certainly looks healthier. He's certainly playing even more than he did in 2019. So there's a lot of things to hang your hat on in this game. And again, we're going to talk about the dominating performance of Chris Jones, but Frank Clark's efforts should not go unnoticed along the defensive line in this game. He was especially dominant, working some backup tackles on the edge. That's the kind of thing that you want to see of a player that's having to go up against backups right there. That level of dominance.
And with Frank Clark, this is something that's always got overlooked, and people, you can almost visually see them rolling their eyes, even though they're working through Twitter here, when you talk about how good of a run defender he is. But he really is. And that's continuing this year. You have to change the way you run the football against the Chiefs when you have healthy Frank Clark playing the way he can versus the run. And I know that there's stats out, from PFF or ESPN's analytics that don't really say he's very good versus the run. All I can say is go look where teams run. It's always away from him. The stats show you they have no success when they run where Frank Clark is. That's what you need to know. Teams don't try it. When they do, it doesn't work. By God, if there's one play where he loses contain, though, I will hear about it on Twitter. So, you don't have to be the first one to do it. Somebody else is going to let me know that a ball got outside of him one time in a game. But he's a great run defender. He really is. And this year, as Craig said, he's playing a little bit more powerful. He looks stronger. He looks healthier. I think it's showing up even more. You see some of these plays, how much he's squeezing down the B gap, playing through an offensive tackle. He, as a defensive end, is taking away an interior gap while still holding his responsibility to the outside. It's excellent play from him there. And then the Chiefs went out and got Melvin Ingram across from him. And this pairing of defensive ends, it's making a world of difference for Chris Jones. We're going to get into Chris Jones, who has been great. But I think you finally have two defensive ends right now that can both win with power. Now that Frank Clark's added some weight, he's looking healthier. You got Melvin Ingram. You have guys that aren't being forced into taking 10 to 11-yard rushes around the arc. These guys can take shorter, more direct pass to the quarterback, and even when they're not getting home, they're forcing these quarterbacks to step up into the pocket. They're forcing them to do it early, and that's playing right into Chris Jones, Jaron Reed's hands. That's right where those guys want to be. They're not having to run 8 yards, 9 yards into the pocket anymore because of how direct Ingram and Frank Clark are able to play. This Melvin Ingram signing's proving to be super huge for the Chiefs.
Massive.
It's wild that the Steelers couldn't get him on the field, couldn't make him happy by getting him on the field. I get it. They have two really good outside linebackers that were playing ahead of him. I really do understand. But you couldn't use this guy for 20 to 30 snaps a game. You couldn't find a way to make him useful. I don't understand what the Steelers were doing there with that. But it's been a huge move for the Chiefs.
We'll take it. And Melvin Ingram played
third in pressure rate on the Chiefs defensive line since he got here. Third. That's outrageous.
And I believe he got his highest snap percentage this week, 66% of the snaps for a Melvin Ingram. A guy that got 75% of the snaps was Chris Jones. And he was felt on 100% of the plays that he was in. And I think probably a few of the plays he wasn't somehow, because that man was all over the field. And he was just all over the backfield, really. He was dominant. I think that might have been the best performance we've seen from Chris Jones. And that's saying a lot, because when he's dialed in, he is one of the two best pass rushers along the interior in the National Football League. The only other guy is a guy named Aaron Donald. And you saw dialed in Chris Jones just completely wreck the Dallas Cowboys this week, Craig.
Yeah. And it wasn't just this week. Everybody kind of remembers Chris Jones being dominant, led the team in pressure rate last week as well, 14%, had 17% this week. And it felt like more. Like it felt like because Dak Prescott and this Cowboys offense were having to get the ball out so quickly because they didn't feel comfortable running on the interior because there was just so much penetration. Chris Jones was absolutely wrecking this interior of the Cowboys offensive line, and that includes one of the better offensive linemen in the league in Zach Martin. Has 3.5 sacks on the day, had a ton of pressures as well, swats the ball that pops up into the air for L'Jarius Sneed at the end of the game. That's after last week when he had 2 rejections at the line of scrimmage near the end of the game. This is the best 2 back-to-back games, I want to say, for Chris Jones in his career. Again, we've talked about Chris Jones before, how he has some isolated appearances. He certainly has some of the highest quality pass rushes and sacks along this defensive line, and certainly that we've seen in a long time in a Chiefs uniform, but it's not always consistent with his pressure. And again, that Eagles game from a few years back is the one that I remember that sticks out in my mind from a start to finish standpoint, that he looked great. Over the past 2 weeks, I can say that about both of those games: the consistency, the quality, and the dominance on the interior. And that's the point. And that's the point that everybody's going to keep bringing up on the interior. They moved him inside. He played 7% of his snaps at defensive end this week, just basically at the start of the game. And some of the base reps, a couple of nickel reps, 1 dime rep. These are the things that are fine. You know, you're fine with him doing that. Yeah, Kent, go ahead.
How much? I don't know if you have this off the top of your head, Craig,
Mm-hmm.
but how much in base was he playing inside this week?
The majority. I think he only got 1 snap as a defensive end in the base. Like,
Okay.
he got more as a nickel guy and 1 on the dime on the outside of the dime. But it was basically early on in the game, and then after that, they moved him inside, even in the base. Because he was being so destructive. You would be silly not to use him there. I obviously saw that they were getting the monster, the Hulk version of Chris, and just said, hey, guess what? Line up inside. They can't handle you right now. And that was the case all game long.
Well, and this has always been like the big question with Chris Jones throughout his time with the Chiefs is, it's not even week to week, but it's play to play, drive to drive. When is he going to care to take over? Not that he doesn't care on every single play to try hard or anything like that, but when does he care to take over that play, that game? When he wants to give 110%, there's very few times where he doesn't impact a play when he's going all out. The issue is, and this goes back to Mississippi State, his conditioning hasn't always allowed him to do that. And then there's been times when we've all seen these plays in the Chiefs uniform where he doesn't give great effort. Even if you're tired, you can give better effort than some of the plays that we've seen. And so that does happen. That's always been there in his game. But when you get games like this, or like last week and these other games that Craig's referencing, he looks like he is right there on the heels of Aaron Donald as the best defensive tackle in the NFL. Can he keep it up for the rest of this year? I think we're all kind of wrong. Craig and I, when Steve Spagnuolo first came to the Chiefs, Craig and I both talked about how Chris Jones would kick outside. Maybe this would work. And then he could play outside, inside, and these dime rush packages. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. The one time we saw him do it against the Titans, it didn't work. Then this year, it came back again. And we're like, listen, it's going to happen. He wants to play outside. He convinced them to let him play outside. It's going to work. He looks good in practice. He looks good in the preseason. He was fine. He wasn't terrible. He was whatever. Like, you were wasting, though. You were wasting some of his ability while he was playing out there. Yeah.
He wasn't this. Yeah.
He wasn't.
They weren't, to be fair, the scripts, a lot of, like, they weren't able to get him into those rush situations as easily. When they were designating him for certain packages to kick inside and rush, like we all kind of said even early, like, he's going to be a guy that they'll kick inside in these obvious passing situations. But guess what? The Chiefs were not in control of any game for like the first 6 weeks of the season. So there's your reasoning. I'm sorry, continue.
No, you're okay. I still think putting him at edge, he doesn't rush the passer in a good enough way to be a consistent impact player off the edge. He's essentially, it's a power move. He's only going through a tackle. There's enough, flexibility to maybe change levels, but it's still an off-speed pitch for a tackle. I don't think if you give him 30 pass rush reps at defensive end, he's going to come near the level of impact he's going to be on the inside. So it's just, The Chiefs tried it. He wanted to. They tried it. It didn't work. Now he's back inside. You have defensive ends that can play on the outside. You have linebackers behind them that are playing faster, that are doing a better job helping him defend the run, the area that he struggled the most with in his time with the Chiefs. You got good nose tackles next to him. This defense is slowly but surely building around Chris Jones in the front, and he's kind of dropped into the perfect spot now. He's in the best spot he's been in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform to play the style of football he wants to play for the Chiefs, and I think you've seen it these past few weeks.
All right, we got Josh Williams with the comment saying, I got big Dan Quinn vibes wearing my hat backwards. I did make fun of Dan Quinn for that during the game. But here's something. Will McCutcheon also says, haven't heard Kent talking about the investment in the cornerback position in November. And that's where we need to talk about next. Yeah. I mean, we could honestly, I think I mentioned it during the KCSN postgame show, the live postgame show, which will now be at the Kingdom Bar and Grill, by the way, moving forward, just so you know. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. But, you could single out about every single Chiefs defender this week as guys that had a solid performance to great performance. There was a lot of really, really good tape out there across the defense. The secondary, though, definitely deserves some recognition. We can start with L'Jarius Sneed, which I'm pretty sure that there were 2 L'Jarius Sneeds on the field at any given time, because I just honestly, it felt like the Chiefs got to play with 12 defenders at times, and it was 2 L'Jarius Sneeds because that man was all over the field. I watched it back yesterday and laughed because he kept showing up the same way Chris Jones was dominating up front. L'Jarius Sneed was dominating everywhere else. despite what some site might call an average performance, he was the second best player on the field, unquestionably, and deserves he deserves the butt slap, the good job, the beer, whatever. We should just give them all to him right now as well, because that man deserves a ton of credit today for his performance, Greg.
I mean, this man lives to destroy screens. I'm convinced. There's a lot of cornerbacks on this team that live to destroy screens. I'm not trying to slight Charvarius or Rashad Fenton, who are both excellent at doing it. L'Jarius just takes it to a different level, slipping Dalton Schultz to catch the receiver in air on a bubble screen. That does not happen. That's an elite play from a defender. L'Jarius Sneed also playing off sometimes, able to still make plays against running backs in space while dodging a block, while slipping under a tight end or a wide receiver trying to wall him out. He made so many plays in the flats that if he doesn't make, go for first downs easily, extend drives for this Cowboys offense. Now all of a sudden, L'Jarius Sneed is almost single-handedly getting the Chiefs to 3rd and long, where they can tee off and this pass rush can go to town. You saw that time and time again, which is why I'm so happy that he finally was the one that got, an interception in this game, because he deserved to be all over that box score. And he certainly was in support coming downhill, but you wanted to see it coming across the middle of the field in coverage. Just a phenomenal game. We're going to get to the other side of the field too, but my goodness, these Chiefs corners came to play this game against the Dallas Cowboys.
They did. And I think this was the first week that you were going to see these outside corners, and they might be challenged, especially when the Chiefs came out and played a lot of single high coverage against the Cowboys. Now, not having Amari Cooper does play a role, and I think you did see the Cowboys early on were trying to get the Michael Gallup isolated one-on-one matchup, and they had a mixed bag. There was some success, but it wasn't easy. So this was the first week that you were going to see these outside corners get challenged a ton. I think we all kind of know how good L'Jarius Sneed is now. The range that he has an impact on the game from while playing that slot corner is ridiculous. My mind is blown that somewhere out there somebody thought he had an average game. I don't know how you watch that and come to that conclusion at all. But this was the week. The outside corners were going to be challenged, and once again, they stepped up to it. Now, I don't think that Dak Prescott gave the best throws. I think there were some drops that maybe skew a little bit of how it passed out, but they weren't a problem. They were at no point in time where Charvarius Ward and Rashad Fenton had a problem. There was one drive where Ward looked like he maybe wasn't on the same page with some other guys, and I think just about every Chiefs fan tweeted it out during this one drive. And then he came right back the very next time the Cowboys had the ball, had the interception right before half, that I do think was that was the play of the game for me that I wrote about. Like that was huge, stopping those points. So Ward, Finn, you can't tip your cap enough to these guys who didn't get a huge investment from the Chiefs in a trade or in the draft that are stepping up and playing like quality starters. I mean, at this point in time, we might have to call them more than quality starters. They're good. They've been good so far. Now, do I feel great? I still have reservations. I still remember saying the same thing about Bashaud Breeland and Charvarius Ward in years past. Then we get to the playoffs and the Texans, and then the 49ers a little bit, and then Tampa Bay last year, just throwing the ball vertically at them over and over and over again. I still remember that, but as of right now, they're playing good football. This cornerback room is not an issue at all right now for the Chiefs. And you look at the investment monetarily or how they got about it, you would assume they are, but they haven't been. So, I mean, that's great for this Chiefs team that's built through the front seven.
Well, go ahead. I have a hypothetical. Unless you were going to go on with the cornerbacks, Kent.
I did have something really quick about the cornerbacks.
Okay, yeah.
I think the game plan earlier was they wanted to target Charvarius Ward. And they were definitely trying to pick on him. And Charvarius Ward slipped, and if Dak Prescott wasn't so amped up to be going up against Patrick Mahomes in a primetime game, maybe that's a big completion down the sidelines. But I mean, Charvarius made him pay, and after he made him pay, it made it a lot more difficult for them to go after him continually. So that's a credit to Charvarius Ward. Now I'm dying to hear this hypothetical from Craig now, though. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we think, because there was a lot of single high, there was a lot of man coverage out of these Chiefs corners going up against Michael Gallup, and for a half, CeeDee Lamb, they were able to shut those guys down. Like Maddie said, a couple drops, but largely able to shut them down. Do we think that was an audible by Steve Spagnuolo after he found out that Amari Cooper was out on Friday? Or do we think that was the game plan? Did they say, listen, we're going to show up, we're going to play physical with these guys like the Denver Broncos did a couple weeks before, where they just really roughed up these receivers and they were able to limit Dallas a little bit? Did Steve Spagnuolo look at that and say, listen, we're going to get rough, we're going to get physical with them, we're going to force refs to call plays, which they didn't. We are going to get grabby, we are going to play physical. Do we think that that was the game plan all along, even with Amari Cooper?
I think it got adjusted without Amari Cooper. I think when you see Amari Cooper's out, if you don't come out and adjust your game plan a little bit to be facing Cedric Wilson and Noah Brown instead of Amari Cooper, you're not doing your job properly. So I do think that there was an adjustment. Now, I do think the game plan, like the overall style of play, was going to be the same. You still were going to see single high. You were still going to see this overly physical play. I mean, that's a Steve Spagnuolo staple. He's been playing like that for a long time. This defense is feeling themselves now, so they're getting back to it a little bit more. But I will say this, and unfortunately this is a bigger conversation, but Craig opened this can of worms. From a overall team standpoint, a philosophy standpoint, the Chiefs don't value passing outside the numbers. They don't value throwing vertical outside the numbers on offense or defense. They don't invest in outside corners because they think that's a low percentage throw. They want opposing offenses to take those throws because it's just a low percentage chance. On offense, we've complained about it all the time. They don't throw vertically outside the numbers unless it's a shot play to Tyreek Hill. That's not where they try to throw the football. It's a low percentage number on both sides. I think it's got to be an Andy Reid down thing. That's just not a philosophy of this team. Like, they don't believe in throwing the football out there. They don't believe in investing time or resources into those positions. I think that's pretty clear over the past 7, 8, 9 years. That's not where the Chiefs focus. So I do think that the Chiefs are willing to give the mismatch on the outside and allow teams to challenge in that area of the field.
They didn't hit him. I mean, they tried. Yeah. They had a wide open guy. Still miss him. And like it's good football to force some of those low percentage, especially those fade routes a lot of times. So I think there's probably some legitimacy to this was something that they had kind of baked into what they were planning on doing, and maybe at a high clip, even with an Amari Cooper involved here. I do think that there's legitimately a reason to believe that. We talked a lot about the play action, the deep overs over the second level of the defense with CeeDee Lamb, like an area of the field that Dak lives. He really does really well with the RPO stuff. And so, like, these are, throw into voids and throw into space and throw with anticipation against zone coverages, things that Dak Prescott's good at. And so maybe there was some intentionality about we're gonna make these, man throws. We're gonna make these, we're gonna make them hold the ball a tick to try to let this guy get out the backside of the play, stuff like that. So I think there's some legitimacy to this. Maybe it's just been part of the game plan.
Yep. And just real quick before we move off the defense, Steve Spagnuolo did come out, play a little more physical, played a little more blitz heavy than I think we expected. Also probably has a lot to do with a backup offensive line, Amari Cooper being out as well, really testing, some of the communication up front, and it worked. Steve Spagnuolo blitzed 22% of the time. So it was a little higher than I think we expected. That is lower than his season-long average, but still closer than I think we expected. And it was pretty spread out. It wasn't just like he got blitz heavy at the end of the game. It was pretty spread out. But by and large, they allowed their four-man rush to set up shop and do business up front and just reap the benefits, just like you will be if you get yourself a Macadoodles as a franchisee. You can just print money. I've talked about it before. You can get your people just in there and just let that thing run, because best customer service, the best selection, and the best prices, you're going to have everybody in Kansas City coming to your Macadoodles. And they're going to be spending all their liquor budget essentially at Macadoodles because they can get so much. They'll get great recommendations from people. So you need to get on the phone. Get a hold of Roger, info@macadoodles.com. Get one set up to Kansas City and let your people do the work for you.
You never cease to amaze me, Craig.
Thank you.
We've gone
He's the best of us all.
We've gone 32 minutes without talking about the offense.
Can we just go another 32 minutes?
Yeah. Well, I think it should just be a quick hitter because Maddie's inevitably going to derail this show in about 4 minutes. Already has. I don't know where to go with this thing. They started really high. And I will say this. Me and Maddie were having this conversation. We had it on the KCSN live post-game show. We've had it in the DMs all day. I don't think the offensive performance was good by any stretch of the word. 19 points, it wasn't great. Started well. Early script was very good. I don't want to equate it entirely. I don't think this is the worst performance we've seen in November. I think, it was somewhere between what we saw with the Raiders and what we saw with the Packers. And I know that's not saying a lot either, but I don't think it was it's not like it was devoid of positive moments. It wasn't devoid of good things, but it also wasn't the standard that we've set for this offense with the best player in the world, Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's where things are getting it's a tough narrative to kind of completely wrestle down, because I don't want to say I'm overly optimistic about this offense and just them pulling it out without any real proof that they're going to be able to beat too high coverage. But I'm also not willing to just secede the fact that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes aren't going to figure this thing out. We're all in this very weird spot in our discussions about the offense. But Maddie, I'll let you go and just kind of maybe just talk a little bit about how you feel about what you saw this week, and maybe just kind of look at it in the totality of the hashtag No Loss November as well.
So yes, this performance was somewhere between the Las Vegas Raiders performance and the Green Bay Packers. There's a wide range.
I know.
Literally both ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah, I mean, I know. This is, yeah.
However, for me, this goes down as worse than the Packers' performance from a confidence standpoint, because I saw stuff in the Packers game that I saw they were trying to do. You could see them trying to change what they were doing that wasn't working in the Packers game. You started seeing less Travis Kelce isolated in the backside of 3x1s. You started seeing Tyreek Hill being utilized as the isolated receiver a ton because it forced teams to change their coverage. You saw a couple shot plays thrown to Tyreek Hill. You could see they were trying to do something different. They were trying to fix the offense. This game, after those first 3 drives, after you get out of the scripted plays, it was almost as if the Chiefs just said, we can't do it, so why try? They didn't try to run the ball. They just sat back and just tried to run RPO after RPO, crossing route after crossing route. Anytime they tried a shot play, it was predictable and it was going to come directly off play action at the end of a drive that didn't go well. They always came out with one of the first or second down after a quick 3 and out and tried the shot play right then to get something going. Just everything they did was predictable. It was doing the exact same thing that didn't work for the Giants, that didn't work in the first half of the Washington football team, against the Bills, against the Titans. They showed no growth. That's my issue with this offense. From the start of November to this, if you watch the Giants game and this Cowboys game, I would not have guessed that there was any growth whatsoever from this offensive standpoint. Nothing is different. It's the exact same problems that they started this month with, they're leaving this month with, and it's crazy. This is the first 5-game stretch of Patrick Mahomes' career that the Chiefs, and this includes games that Matt Moore played in, not even Patrick Mahomes, that the Chiefs have averaged under 20 points per game since Patrick Mahomes took over. And that's with a 41-point game against the Raiders, who were too hard-headed to play the right defense against them. They still average under 20 points. It's broken, and they're doing nothing to fix it. That's the issue. That's the problem right now. Nothing is being done to fix it on the field. Hopefully after the bye week, this is fixed, but it's hard to watch right now. It really is.
Okay. Do you know why that is, though? Because the defense is so damn good that outside the first 15, you don't have to run an offense anymore. You could
This
run
is
a
true.
JV offense. Just take
They're-
3 knees.
They're
Take care of the
resting on
ball.
their laurels.
They're resting on their laurels because the defense
Or their
is
luxuriouses.
elite. Just absolute. The defense has been so. No, wouldn't that be great if I just turned this into another 10-minute bit on the defense? No, should. No, and I think I have a theory, and I haven't run past these guys. We've been talking to the DMs a little bit about how teams are playing them, how ineffective the Chiefs have been against a lot of this too high stuff. I don't know that it's specifically against the too high shell. I mean, they're certainly bad against it, but I think it's more teams that don't run it all that regularly. Like the Chiefs come into the Cowboys game. They're primarily a single high team. They do some of the too high stuff, but they're primarily single high. And now all of a sudden, after maybe the start of this, it goes to a too high shell. Chiefs really struggle with it. They get in the middle of the game. They can't move the ball. They go 4 of 5, drives in the middle of the game where they only get 1 first down. And then the 5th drive is the interception drive where they got 2 first downs. It's just not moving the ball at all in those. Had 3 negative net drives. Not moving the ball at all. But they do play these teams that play some of these too high defenses, that the concepts that they're attacking them with are better. Matty referenced the Packers game and how he liked the way that they were attacking. The Packers were a too high team. We go back to week 3 against the Chargers. That's a too high team. That's a Brandon Staley running a lot of this stuff that teams are imitating. Chiefs had 0 problems moving the ball in that game. Came out with a full plan of attack to get after that defense and did. What we're seeing is that the teams that are going out of their way to run something different, to
Change their
present the
identity.
Chiefs with, change their identity. What we're starting to see, Chiefs really struggling with that. And we're seeing that time and time again. Raiders don't change their identity. Chiefs beat the tar out of them. Packers, they didn't beat the tar out of them, but the concepts to attack it were right, and the execution was just a little off. We've seen throughout the season that maybe those sorts of teams are the ones that the Chiefs are preparing for, and when they shift, they just don't know how to adjust to it for some reason. They got them in their book. They know how to beat them. It's just not happening in the middle of the game.
So they're in their bag. Every team is just decidedly in their bag every time that they play the Chiefs. Large.
I mean,
and I'm not saying that's wrong, Craig, because I think there's some legitimacy
it's a theory
to that too. I think there's probably some legitimacy to it. Andy's got to be more prepared, and I think this might be something we see coming out of the bye week is, okay, look, tendencies are being like their teams are just breaking their tendency left and right against us. There is a core identity to how these teams are breaking their tendency. And I don't think Andy doesn't know that already. But I do think the bye week could be an opportunity for them to say, okay, look, if teams are going to continue to play us in these too high looks, we got to be better with more intentional with having more installed on the call sheet and ready to go if these teams are going to flip the script on their identity a little bit here or there. Like this could legitimately be a conversation that is had over the bye week, because what this bye week is, it's the self-assessment. It's the decision making on personnel. So I'll just like the McCole Hardman trend right now. If he comes out of the bye week with a low snap percentage, it's done. It's over, because they've actively made the decision that they're kind of just not going to utilize him beyond the gadget plays, which is basically what he's been the last 2 weeks. So, these decisions are made during the bye week. So I think there's going to be a lot of self-scouting here when it comes to, what do we do when teams completely flip their script and change their identity how are we going to be better prepared to handle some of this? That's one of the questions I think is absolutely going to be had. It's not like Andy doesn't have stuff that can beat this. We've seen him do
We've
it.
seen it.
It's just the instincts, the play call instincts are not there. Maybe aren't there entirely where they have been at different times. You know, a different feel. Maybe there's a different feel because teams are going out of their way to break their own tendencies. That could be part of the conversation that's worth having here, Maddie.
Well, and to Craig's theory, there is some legitimacy to that, but the Titans, the Washington football team, the second half, the Chiefs were really good, but the first half, they looked very stumped, and they were one of the highest percentage of pre-snap too high looks last year. I don't know about this year. So there's some on both sides. I do think there's some of that, but even against the Cowboys on early downs, they still played plenty of single high. I mean, on first down, the Cowboys gave you single high looks, and the Chiefs just never really challenged it. Now, I think the next issue beyond just the pre-snap too high looks, physical defensive back play kills the Chiefs. They have exactly one player right now that's consistently beating it, and his name's Tyreek Hill. And the problem is to free up everybody else, to free up Travis Kelce and Byron Pringle, McCole Hardman, you have to isolate Tyreek Hill by himself, which means he's 100% going to get that press coverage. And while he can beat it, is that the best use of Tyreek Hill? Is that where you want to put your best player in the NFL at all times? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, that's the issue. Even when they got single high against the Cowboys, they were afraid to take shots because nobody could beat Trevon Diggs or Anthony Brown one-on-one for these shots. That's something you have to be able to do. So it's beyond just the too high stuff. It's this offense right now is struggling to attack a specific defense. The only defense that it's felt like they've specifically attacked their scheme for the past 6 weeks is the Las Vegas Raiders, who ran the exact same coverage that they've seen, since the entire time Gus Bradley coached the Chargers. That's the only team they look like they had the scheme advantage on. I would even argue in the Packers, it's because they were missing their 3 to 4 best defensive players by the end of the first quarter is why it started to work. So they just don't look good on the offensive side. I wanted to get better after the bye week. I really do. Because at this point in time, as excited as Craig is about the defense, and I'm not as excited as Craig, so I don't, have to write about it every week, but I'm excited for it. I do enjoy what the defense is doing. I'm equally as saddened by what this offense has become. It's bad to watch. It's not fun to watch this offense. And I don't even think Patrick Mahomes was bad. Patrick Mahomes played a fine football game. He wasn't bad. It's just the offense lacks any kind of bite in any kind of direction on any given play. It's just wild to see from an Andy Reid coach football team.
You got something, Craig?
No, I was going to say, I'm looking forward to getting out of the bye because then you get to play Fangio Staley defenses again. And if we'll find out in a hurry. Yeah, we'll find out in a hurry if the Chiefs come up with something to beat some of these looks that they're seeing. You'll find out immediately. Week 1 after the bye, you'll find out if the Chiefs made the necessary adjustments to attack that defense.
There's immense amount of legitimacy to everything Matty says and everything he said. And I just also, I think track record matters. And I think Andy Reid as a exceptional play caller, exceptional play designer, exceptional offensive coach, and Patrick Mahomes, who I will continue to grandstand as the best player in the world, unabashedly. I think that's a group you trust to figure things out here. Maddie, what are we handing out today? I'm gonna what is it again? What am I doing?
We literally hand out the same thing every single week, Kent. You're giving out a helmet sticker. Just one big KC Sports Network helmet sticker for a Chiefs player of your choice.
I kind of trolled you there. My helmet sticker is going to Willie Gay. I don't want his performance to get appreciated because it's so easy to not appreciate what a very good performance when there were so many great performances happening. His athleticism was undeniably noticeable. They're nearly closing on that interception, challenging passing lanes, but also that really great play on, I think it was the third down. They tried to run a little rub concept and he beat it to the flat. And made the play before the line to gain. Outstanding, great game by Willie Gay. And, he's really come along this hashtag no loss November.
We're giving out a butt slap, and I believe this is the second week in a row to Byron Pringle. Not only has he cemented the fact that he's wide receiver 2, but I think Dan Orlovsky had a great video of it and talked about it, the hustle that he had on the interception on Travis Kelce's drop. He stopped that interception essentially from going for 6 points, and it turned into only 3 points for the Dallas Cowboys. that matters. These kind of things are exactly what this award's for. Hustle play, things that fly under the radar. Byron Pringle, low-key, taking over the wide receiver 2 role because he's an excellent blocker. He's starting to get more trust. And then when there is a hustle play to be made, I can guarantee you number 13's out there trying to make it.
All right. My whole ass bottle of vodka. That one right back there. It's going to Rashad Fenton. My man might need it while he's recovering from it. It does sound like it may not be as serious as we expected. They need him since Rashad Fenton has been on the field as the third corner, rotating into the nickel and dime. This Chiefs secondary has just been different. They've had a new life to them. They've had a new energy to them, a new swagger to them. So one for Rashad Fenton. Whole ass bottle of vodka for him.
That's going to do it for the KC Laboratory live show. Thank you so much for listening, watching, wherever you're consuming this. We appreciate you. I hope you all consume a lot of food on Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful week. If you don't hear from us by then, we'll catch you later.